So Jamar Chase led the NFL in receiving yards. Justin Jefferson, number 2. Brian Thomas. Do you know who he plays for?
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Jacksonville.
He killed. If you remember, he killed us down there. Big game against us.
Yes, and Edgerrin Cooper killed Christian Kirk on that deep ball that he ran him down and broke his collarbone or his ribs or something. Drake London, Atlanta. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit. Jerry Jeudy, who was traded to Cleveland but still had a 1,200-yard season. Malik Neighbors of the Giants. Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders.
He doesn't count. I would think Vegas and us. I think Green Bay might be ahead of Vegas.
Okay, good.
Once they traded Devontae.
Good ad. CeeDee Lamb, Dallas.
Yeah.
Ladd McConkey was the leading receiver for the Chargers. Arizona, Trey McBride, he's a tight end, so we can take him off the list.
Quick question, is Ladd McConkey, would he be the number 1 wideout on the Packers?
I have not watched a lot of Ladd McConkey.
Latitudinally.
But I would say based on his productivity. Now, do the Chargers have other guys that they're spreading it around to the way Jordan Love would be? I don't know who their other wide receivers are. They brought back Mike Williams.
Yeah.
So they must not.
They have a couple others. Their names are escaping me outside of the season, but they spread it around pretty well.
Jackson Smith and Jigba. Clear-cut number 1 in Seattle. We'll skip George Kittle. Garrett Wilson of the Jets, still at 1,100 yards. Terry McLaurin, could have been a Packer. Cortland Sutton in Denver. A.J. Brown in Philadelphia. Devontae Adams, 18th in receiving yards last season, despite playing for 2 teams. Zay Flowers. Jacoby Myers is their number 1 receiver in Vegas.
Right, right now, just going through this list.
Nico Collins, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, the next ones.
I normally will look at things through divisions.
Okay.
AFC, the only team that I would probably say that we're better than, wideout-wise, is the not the Jets, the
Patriots,
New England Patriots.
Yeah.
So the Patriots. Then you start looking at whether it's the Indianapolis Colts. I would say that we're probably on par with the Colts. I don't know anybody with the Colts that is all of a sudden but the Texans, the Jags, I think that you would make a really good argument. You're not going to get ahead. So looking at it, I would say we're definitely in the bottom quarter of where this rankings would go with the 1 and 2 wideouts. I don't know anybody that could argue that. You can. I don't know if you have any validity to it. But Carolina, New Orleans, there's maybe 5 or 6 teams that you're on the same level with. And then, especially when you start looking at your own division and then your own conference, we don't have that guy yet. And I think it's become abundantly clear we need to have someone emerge as that guy, or someone would have been brought in. And now, unless there's a big boy trade coming that I don't see on the horizon, Green Bay is going to run this thing back and probably pick up an early round draft pick to add to that room. They're looking at this saying, we're going to go with our tight ends, and we think our tight ends, which were Tucker Kraft, I would say, is probably a top 10 tight end. That's where this offense is going. And you hope that these other guys will emerge and can add, but I don't see them making a J.R. Ewing type change. I think they're hoping that this sitcom, Joey, is looking to maybe get some ground and turn into a Friends light moving forward, because this was nothing Friends-ish about this group.
So I think
and now you're just hoping that Tribbiani gets his big break and their show takes off. That's what we're hoping for when it comes to this wide receiver group.
So I think it's instructive to keep going on this list, because you're going to start to hear guys that are number 2 receivers for their teams being mentioned before you get to the Packers' leading receiver. Jamison Williams, that's the second Lion. DK Metcalf, that's the second Seahawk. Darnell Mooney, that's the second Falcon. Puka Nacua led the Rams in receiving. It's the first Ram on the list. Jawan Jennings led San Francisco. That's the first 49er on the list. DJ Moore in Chicago. Tyreek Hill in Miami. Those are first-time teams with their leading receiver on this list. Tyreek Hill, then Tee Higgins, second Bengals receiver. George Pickens, that's the number one in Pittsburgh, and they went out and got DK Metcalf. So they clearly didn't feel like him alone was enough as a number one. They went and made the trade for Metcalf. Marvin Harrison, Maserati Marv in Arizona, and Jordan Addison in Minnesota. Those are two more wide receivers ahead of Jaden Reed, who was 36th in the NFL in receiving yardage. So we didn't get to a Colts player. We didn't get to a Patriots player. So there are teams with lesser number ones at this point, but like you said, not many.
And those aren't the teams that we're striving to be.
Correct.
Either.
No, you're right. Interesting, Buffalo, which had another good season, didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but Buffalo didn't. You didn't hear Buffalo being mentioned in there, right? Khalil Shakir had fewer yards than Jaden Reed did.
Was there a Chiefs player?
No, Travis Kelce is the first one on the list, and he's obviously a tight end, and he was behind Jaden Reed as well. So
I think it's been an interesting little exam.
I think so too.
Jesse, are you concerned about where the Packers sit at wide receiver after hearing about the Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase? Are you concerned where the Packers sit with their wide receiving core heading into the 2025 season?
I have been concerned for a while, yes. Because I think if Christian Watson's the best receiver on the roster, I think that's a problem because of his health. And I don't mean that to pile on him.
Yep. No, you don't think he makes a difference anyways, and that was before he was injured.
I've been kind of snarky toward Christian Watson over time, but in all seriousness,
you've been a jaywalk.
If he's the number one wide receiver, he's not healthy enough to be available to be a threat enough when he's not out there.
You don't think he's very good. You don't think he's very good either. If we're being
I think there's a lot better out there, yes.
I am going to go down with the potential ship. I am going to believe that Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks in year 3, much like Devontae Adams, who had an injury and drop-riddled second season and had people calling for more Jeff Janis, I think those guys are both going to take a big jump this year. I'm going to believe that, and when we're sitting here on March 17th, 2026, and I was wrong, I will acknowledge that. But I am going to believe that both those players have shown me enough that I am going to believe that they can be both capable of 1,000-yard seasons. I don't know if the offense is going to be designed to do that, but those guys, I still think there's enough ability there. Not just because of the Verbo story either. I just think that you see them do some special things, and I want to believe that they're going to be motivated by both having tons of drops, tons of inconsistency. I'm looking forward to when we have the offseason program availability, because I want to ask Jaden Reed, who's a pretty straight shooter, what the hell are you going to do now? Because you dropped too many balls, you disappeared in the second half of the season. That's not your standard. What are you going to do in season 3? I might soften it slightly. But my point is that he's a pretty stand-up guy. And I'm eager to see what he does in year 3. I'm really eager to see what Wicks can do, because I have not given up on my belief in him. So, no, I'm going to say I'm not concerned, because I also think that there is a huge motivator for Romeo Doubs this season. And that is to get paid by probably someone else. But if he busts his tail and stays healthy and doesn't get concussion problems, he can make himself a ton of money this year. Wouldn't you agree?
Do you think that Goody feels the same way and that's why he hasn't made a move?
I do. I do. Okay. I think so. Yeah. So when Goody and I agree, we're on to something.